Listen. Right now, in this very moment, there exists a silence so profound that it has been calling to human hearts for thousands of years. The ancient Greeks had a word for it, hesychia, perfect stillness. The Buddhists called it samatha, calm abiding. The Taoists knew it as wu-wei, effortless being. What if I told you that this same silence they discovered is waiting for you right now? Welcome to the Quiet Mind. I'm here to share with you 7 ancient secrets that have guided seekers across millennia toward the peace that lives beyond thought, beyond worry, beyond the endless chatter of modern life. These aren't just historical curiosities. They are living truths, timeless keys to a quieter mind. And they work as powerfully today as they did 3,000 years ago. Take a breath with me. Let your shoulders drop. We're about to embark on a journey into the deepest wisdom humanity has ever discovered about finding peace within. The first secret, the art of sacred pause. There is a moment that exists between every breath, between every heartbeat, between every thought. The ancients knew this moment intimately. They called it by many names. The space between, the pregnant void, the eternal now. This is our first secret, the sacred pause. Imagine, if you will, a master calligrapher in ancient China. Brush poised above rice paper, ink waiting. But before the first stroke, there is stillness, complete stillness. In that pause, the entire painting already exists, not in planning, not in thinking, but in the vast emptiness that holds all possibility. This is what the ancient Taoists understood about the mind. The power lives not in the doing, but in the pausing before the doing. Think about your morning. You wake. Immediately, your mind begins its familiar dance. Today's tasks, yesterday's regrets, the endless parade of thoughts marching through your awareness like soldiers in formation. But what if, just for a moment, you paused? Not to plan, not to organize, not to solve, simply to pause. The Greek philosophers called this epike, a suspension of judgment, a sacred interruption of the mind's habitual patterns. In our modern world, we have forgotten how to pause. We reach for our phones before our feet touch the floor. We fill every silence with noise, every stillness with activity, every pause with productivity. But the ancients knew something we've forgotten. They understood that in the pause, something miraculous happens. The mind settles, like sediment in a glass of muddy water. When the stirring stops, clarity naturally emerges. Here's how this ancient wisdom translates to your life today. Between reading an email and responding, pause. Between hearing difficult news and reacting, pause. Between finishing one task and beginning another, pause. Not a long pause, not a forced pause, just a simple, natural stopping. A brief return to the space between breaths. The 13th century Sufi poet Rumi wrote, "In your light I learn how to love, in your beauty how to make poems. You dance inside my chest where no one sees you, but sometimes I do, and that sight becomes this art, this music, this form." What was he describing? The sacred pause. The moment when the busy mind steps aside and something deeper, something truer, is allowed to emerge. I once knew a surgeon who performed the most delicate operations. Brain surgery, heart surgery, life hanging in the balance of her skill. She told me that before every incision, she would pause. Not for seconds, just for a single breath. In that pause, she said, something would shift. Her hands would steady. Her mind would clear. The perfect precision required for her work would arise naturally, effortlessly. She had discovered, without knowing it, one of humanity's oldest secrets. the transformative power of the sacred pause. Think of a master archer. The bow is drawn, the arrow nocked, the target clear. But the true master knows that the perfect shot comes not from force, not from striving, but from finding that moment of complete stillness before release. In that stillness, the arrow knows its path. In the stillness of your mind, your life knows its direction. The ancient Egyptians built this principle into their entire civilization. They understood that between the inhale and exhale of existence lay infinite potential. Their temples were designed as physical embodiments of this pause, vast spaces that invited the mind to stop, to settle, to remember what lies beneath the surface of constant doing. When archaeologists first entered these temples thousands of years later, they reported an immediate sense of peace, as if the very stones held the memory of countless moments of sacred pause. Your mind might resist this teaching. It might say, "I don't have time to pause. I have too much to do. Pausing is unproductive." This is the voice of a mind that has forgotten its true nature, a mind that has confused motion with progress, noise with life. The ancients would smile at this resistance. They knew it well. It is the same voice that has whispered to every generation, "Hurry, rush, don't stop. There's no time." But there is always time for a breath. There is always space for a pause. What happens when you begin to honor the sacred pause? At first, very little. A moment of calm, a brief quieting of the mental chatter. But something deeper is occurring. You are remembering an ancient rhythm, the natural cadence of awareness itself. Like learning to play a musical instrument, the sacred pause requires practice. Not forced practice, but gentle, consistent returning. A remembering rather than a learning. Modern neuroscience has discovered what the ancients knew intuitively. When we pause, when we create space between stimulus and response, the brain actually changes. The prefrontal cortex, our center of wisdom and clarity, becomes more active. The amygdala, our center of reactivity and fear, begins to settle. The ancient wisdom and modern science agree. In the pause, we find our truest selves. As we sit here together, notice if you can find this space. Not by searching for it, but by allowing it to reveal itself. Between this word and the next word. There. Between this breath and the next breath. There. It's not a place you go to. It's a recognition of where you already are. This is the first secret, the foundation upon which all the others rest. The sacred pause that transforms ordinary moments into doorways to peace. The ancient masters weren't superhuman. They weren't blessed with special powers or mystical abilities. They simply learned to pause, to stop, to allow the natural stillness of awareness to reveal itself. This same stillness is your birthright. It's not something you achieve. It's something you uncover. And the first step is always the same, always has been, always will be. A simple, sacred pause. The second secret, watching without judging. In the mountains of Tibet, there sits a monastery where monks practice an ancient form of meditation. They call it sky gazing. For hours, they simply look up into the vast blue expanse above, watching clouds form and dissolve, watching light shift and change. They're not trying to see anything special. They're not seeking visions or enlightenment. They're practicing something far more profound, the art of watching without judging. This is our second ancient secret. Imagine you are that monk, sitting on a mountain ledge, gazing into infinite blue. Cloud appears. Your mind doesn't say good cloud or bad cloud. It doesn't analyze the cloud's shape or predict where it's going. It simply sees cloud. Another appears, then another. some dark, some light, some moving quickly, some drifting slowly. The mind remains like the sky itself, vast, open, unchanged by what passes through it. Now imagine bringing this same quality of awareness to your inner world. Thoughts arise like clouds in the sky of your mind. Emotions pass through like weather patterns. But instead of getting caught in the storm, you learn to remain as the sky, present, aware, untouched by the temporary phenomena moving through your consciousness. The ancient Stoics called this practice prosok, continuous attention to the present moment without attachment to outcome. But oh, how the mind loves to judge. It's perhaps the mind's favorite activity. Good, bad, right, wrong, should, shouldn't. An endless commentary running parallel to life itself. Watch your thoughts for just a moment. Notice how quickly the judging voice appears. This talk is interesting or boring. My back hurts and that's bad. I should be more focused. I shouldn't be distracted. The ancient Buddhist teachers had a beautiful metaphor for this. They said the judging mind is like a person standing by a river, commenting on every piece of driftwood that floats by. That one's too big. That one's too small. That one's the wrong shape. Meanwhile, the river keeps flowing. The wood keeps drifting. And the person, exhausted by their constant commentary, misses the beauty of the water itself. But there's another aspect of your mind. One that doesn't judge, doesn't analyze, doesn't comment. Simply sees. The ancient Vedantic tradition called this the Sakshi, the witness consciousness. This witness is already present in you. It's the awareness that notices the judging mind. The consciousness that observes the thoughts without being swept away by them. In ancient Greece, Socrates spoke of this same principle when he said, "Know thyself." He wasn't talking about analyzing your personality or understanding your psychology. He was pointing to this deeper knowing, the awareness that watches all the mental activity without being identified with it. The oracle at Delphi, where these famous words were inscribed, was itself a place designed to cultivate this witnessing awareness. Seekers would come not to get answers from outside, but to discover the wisdom that emerges when the mind stops its endless judging and simply observes. Consider anger. In our modern understanding, we say, "I am angry," but the ancient wisdom makes a crucial distinction. It's not, "I am angry," it's anger is arising. Anger is being experienced. Anger is passing through. Do you see the difference? In the first case, you become the anger. In the second, you remain as the sky through which the cloud of anger passes. This watching without judging isn't passive. It's perhaps the most active thing you can do to remain awake and present while all the mental activity continues its dance. Try it now. Notice what thoughts are arising, but instead of engaging with their content, simply note their presence. Thinking is happening. Planning is arising. Worry is present. No need to stop the thoughts. No need to change them. Just the simple recognition, this is what's here right now. The ancient masters discovered something beautiful about this witnessing awareness. It's not cold or detached. It's inherently compassionate. When you stop judging your experience and simply see it clearly, a natural kindness emerges. Think of how you might watch a child playing. You don't judge their games as good or bad, right or wrong. You simply watch with gentle attention, perhaps even delight. This is the same quality of awareness you can bring to your own inner experience. The sages of old made a remarkable promise, that this practice of witnessing without judgment leads to what they called liberation. Not liberation from life, but liberation within life. Freedom to experience fully without being enslaved by the experience. This isn't a philosophical concept. It's a living possibility, available right now in this moment through the simple practice of watching without judging. Notice how this second secret builds on the first. The sacred pause creates the space. The witnessing awareness fills that space with clear, non-judgmental attention. Together, they begin to reveal what the ancients knew: that peace is not something you achieve, but something you recognize. It's not something you create, but something you uncover by removing the barriers of constant mental commentary. As we prepare to explore our third ancient secret, take a moment to appreciate this witnessing awareness that's been with you your entire life. It's been there through every experience, every emotion, every thought, the constant, unchanging presence that simply sees. This awareness is your true nature. Everything else is weather passing through the sky. The third secret, the wisdom of emptiness. There is a story from ancient China about a master potter who was renowned for creating the most beautiful vessels in all the land. Students would travel from distant provinces to learn his secret. One day, a young apprentice asked him, "Master, what makes your pottery so special?" The old potter smiled and held up a finished vase. "What makes this vase useful?" he asked. The student examined it carefully. "The clay, master. The form, the glaze, the decoration." "No," said the master gently. "It is the emptiness inside. Without the empty space, it would just be a lump of clay. The emptiness is what makes it a vessel." This story holds our third ancient secret, the wisdom of emptiness. The ancient sages across all traditions discovered something remarkable about the nature of mind. They found that true peace doesn't come from filling the mind with positive thoughts or spiritual concepts. It comes from recognizing the spacious emptiness that is the mind's essential nature. The Buddhists called it sunyata, the void that is pregnant with infinite possibility. The Hindu sages knew it as akasa, the space in which all experience arises and dissolves. The Christian mystics spoke of it as the via negativa, the path of emptying that leads to divine union. In our modern world, emptiness has become something to fear. We fill our schedules, our minds, our homes, our lives with constant stimulation. Silence makes us uncomfortable. Boredom feels like death. We've forgotten that emptiness is not the absence of something. It's the presence of everything. Think about the space in this room right now. We call it empty space. But is it really empty? It's filled with air, with light, with possibility. Without this empty space, nothing could move, nothing could exist, nothing could happen. Your mind, in its essential nature, is like this space. Not blank or vacant, but awake and open. Not filled with thoughts, but providing the spacious awareness in which thoughts can appear and disappear. When you were a small child, before language fully formed, before concepts solidified, you knew this emptiness intimately. It wasn't a philosophical idea, it was your lived experience. The open, wondering awareness that met each moment fresh and new. The Buddha, sitting under the Bodhi tree 2,500 years ago, didn't achieve enlightenment by acquiring new knowledge or accumulating spiritual experiences. His awakening came through the recognition of what had always been present, the empty, aware space of consciousness itself. He described it this way: form is emptiness, emptiness is form. Form does not differ from emptiness. Emptiness does not differ from form. This wasn't mystical poetry. It was the most practical instruction possible. Look at any experience, any thought, any emotion, any sensation, and you'll find it arising in emptiness, made of emptiness, dissolving back into emptiness. But how do you work with this in daily life? How do you connect with this wisdom of emptiness when your mind feels overwhelmed with thoughts, emotions, responsibilities? The secret is not to try to create emptiness. You can't. It's already here. The practice is to recognize the space that's already present. Right now, as you listen to these words, notice the space between the words. Not the silence, the words are arising in silence. Notice the awareness in which the words are appearing. Now notice the space between your thoughts. Again, not trying to create a gap, but recognizing the spacious awareness that's already there, already hosting whatever arises. This is what the ancient masters meant by emptiness. Not a blank void, but the infinitely spacious presence that allows all experience to occur. The Zen masters developed an entire practice around this recognition. They called it zazen, just sitting. Not sitting to achieve something, not sitting to get somewhere, but sitting to recognize what's already here. There's a famous Zen saying, "You are perfect as you are, and you could use a little improvement." This seeming contradiction points directly to the wisdom of emptiness. You are already the spacious awareness in which all experience arises. That's the perfection. The improvement comes through recognizing this more clearly and consistently. Many people, when they first hear about emptiness, imagine it means becoming emotionless or detached from life. This is exactly backwards. When you recognize your essential nature as spacious awareness, you become more present to experience, not less. It's like the difference between being in a small, cluttered room and standing in a vast cathedral. In the small room, every sound is overwhelming. In the cathedral, the same sounds have space to reverberate, to be fully experienced without being overwhelming. Christian mystics like Meister Eckhart spoke of this same recognition. He wrote, "God is not found in the soul by adding anything, but by subtracting." The subtracting he meant was not getting rid of experiences, but recognizing the space in which experiences arise. The Sufi tradition expressed it beautifully in their poetry. Hafez wrote, "I wish I could show you, when you are lonely or in darkness, the astonishing light of your own being. That light is the luminous emptiness of awareness itself." Modern physics has discovered something the ancient sages knew intuitively. What we call solid matter is mostly empty space. An atom is 99.9999% empty space. The solid world is primarily emptiness, with tiny particles of matter dancing in vast spaciousness. Consciousness appears to work the same way. What we experience as the solid reality of thoughts and emotions is actually temporary appearances arising in the vast emptiness of awareness. This understanding transforms how we relate to difficult emotions. Instead of being overwhelmed by anger, sadness, or fear, we can learn to recognize the spacious awareness in which these experiences are arising. The emotion doesn't disappear, it may be fully felt, but it's held in something larger, something that's not threatened by the emotion's presence. Like a storm in a vast sky, the weather passes through without disturbing the sky's essential nature. I remember a period in my life when anxiety felt overwhelming. Every day began with a tightness in my chest, racing thoughts, a sense of impending doom. I tried everything: therapy, medication, breathing techniques. They helped, but something was still missing. Then I encountered this teaching on emptiness. At first, it seemed too abstract, too philosophical. But gradually, I began to notice the awareness in which the anxiety was arising. The anxiety was still there, but I was no longer identified with it. I was the space in which it was appearing. This shift was subtle but profound. The anxiety lost its power to define my entire experience. It became just one element arising in the vast spaciousness of consciousness. Here's the beautiful paradox. The more you recognize emptiness, the more full life becomes. When you're not constantly trying to fill the void with thoughts, plans, worries, and distractions, you discover that the void is not empty at all. It's pregnant with life, creativity, love, wisdom. It's like clearing the clutter from a room. You don't lose anything essential. You gain space, freedom, the ability to breathe and move and see clearly. Notice how this third secret builds on the first two. The sacred pause creates space. The witnessing awareness observes without judgment. The wisdom of emptiness recognizes that this space and awareness are your essential nature. You're not trying to achieve emptiness, you're recognizing the emptiness that's already here, hosting all of your experience with infinite patience and compassion. When you begin to live from this recognition, action becomes effortless. Like water flowing downhill, your responses emerge naturally from the spacious awareness rather than from the cramped quarters of the thinking mind. This doesn't make you passive or disconnected. If anything, you become more responsive, more creative, more alive. You're no longer operating from the small, cluttered room of personal concerns, but from the vast cathedral of open awareness. The sages who discovered this secret made a profound promise, that recognizing your essential nature as spacious emptiness is the end of suffering. Not because difficult experiences stop arising, but because you realize you are the space in which they appear and disappear, untouched by their coming and going. This is not a philosophical idea to understand, but a living reality to recognize. Right here, right now, in this very moment. As we prepare to explore our fourth ancient secret, take a moment to rest in this recognition. You are not the content of your experience. You are the spacious awareness in which all content arises. This emptiness is not vacant or cold. It is alive, awake, infinitely creative. It is the womb from which all experience is born and to which all experience returns. The fourth secret, the rhythm of natural flow. In the mountains of Japan, there flows an ancient river. For thousands of years, water has moved along its course, sometimes rushing over rocks, sometimes pooling in quiet eddies, sometimes meandering slowly through gentle meadows. The water never struggles against the riverbank. It never tries to flow uphill. It never resists the stones that redirect its path. It simply follows the natural course, the path of least resistance, the way that water has always known. This is our fourth ancient secret, the rhythm of natural flow. The ancient Chinese sages observed this principle everywhere in nature. They watched water carve Grand Canyons not through force, but through persistent, gentle flow. They saw how bamboo bends in the storm while rigid trees break. They noticed how seasons change not through effort, but through natural rhythm. From these observations, they developed one of humanity's most profound philosophies, Wu Wei, often translated as non-action, but more accurately understood as natural action, acting in harmony with the flow of life rather than against it. We live in a culture that celebrates force over flow. We're taught to push through obstacles, to overcome resistance, to dominate and control our circumstances. We schedule every moment, plan every outcome, try to bend reality to our will. But what if there's another way? What if the ancient river holds a secret that could transform not just how we act, but how we live? There's an old story about a farmer who was eager for his crops to grow faster. Every day, he would go to his fields and pull on the young shoots, trying to help them reach toward the sun more quickly. By harvest time, his fields were barren while his neighbors, who had simply tended and waited, were abundant. The farmer had forgotten something the ancients knew well. Everything has its own natural timing. Seeds know when to sprout. Flowers know when to bloom. Hearts know when to heal. Your breath is perhaps your greatest teacher in this ancient art. Notice how it flows naturally, without your control or direction. The inhale comes when it's ready. The exhale follows when it's complete. There's no forcing, no striving, no effort. And yet, the breath is perhaps the most vital action your body performs. Life itself flows through this effortless rhythm. What would it look like to live with this same natural ease? The Tao Te Ching, written over 2,500 years ago, speaks of the sage who does not strive, yet nothing is left undone. This isn't about being passive or inactive. It's about aligning your actions with the deeper currents of life. In ancient India, the concept of dharma pointed to this same principle. Not your duty imposed from outside, but your natural path arising from within. Like a seed that contains within it the entire blueprint of the tree it will become. Your body knows this rhythm intimately. Your heart beats without your conscious effort. Your cells regenerate according to their own mysterious schedule. Your immune system responds to threats with perfect timing and precision. This isn't happening through force or control, but through an intelligence far more sophisticated than the thinking mind. The ancient Greek physicians called this vis medicatrix naturae, the healing power of nature. How do you know when you're in flow versus when you're forcing? The ancients developed subtle ways of reading the signs. In flow, action feels effortless even when it's challenging. There's a sense of being carried by something larger than personal will. Time seems to bend, hours pass like minutes, or moments stretch into eternity. When you're forcing, there's struggle, tension, a feeling of swimming against the current. You feel separate from your actions, like you're pushing them to happen rather than allowing them to unfold. Timing, the ancients understood, is everything. There's a time for action and a time for stillness. A time for speaking and a time for silence. A time for gathering energy and a time for releasing it. In Chinese medicine, they speak of the flow of qi life energy through the body according to natural cycles. Modern chronobiology has discovered that our hormones, immune function, even our capacity for creative thinking follow precise rhythms throughout the day and year. The secret is not to override these rhythms, but to dance with them. So how do you apply this ancient wisdom when someone genuinely seems to be causing problems in your life? When a coworker is truly disruptive, when a family member is consistently hurtful, when a friend betrays your trust. The mirror teaching doesn't ask you to become a doormat or to accept harmful behavior. It asks you to look honestly at what your reaction reveals about your own inner state. I once worked with someone who seemed to criticize everything I did. No matter how carefully I prepared, how thoughtfully I approached tasks, this person found flaws and voiced them publicly. My anger and frustration were consuming. Then I remembered the mirror teaching. Instead of focusing on their behavior, I asked, "What is this showing me about myself?" The answer was uncomfortable but liberating. I realized I had an inner critic just as harsh as their outer criticism. I was doing to myself privately what they were doing to me publicly. The external criticism was so triggering because it matched the frequency of my own self-judgment. When I began working with my inner critic, not trying to eliminate it, but understanding its voice, its concerns, its protective function, something remarkable happened. The external criticism lost its sting. I could hear the feedback without being devastated by it. More surprisingly, my coworkers' behavior began to shift. As I stopped reacting defensively, as I learned to receive criticism without collapse, they became less critical. The mirror was reflecting a new frequency. The mirror of relationship operates at multiple levels simultaneously. On the surface, it shows you your psychological patterns, your triggers, your defenses, your unconscious behaviors. At a deeper level, it reveals your spiritual development. How do you handle conflict? How do you respond to love? How do you meet fear? How do you navigate power dynamics? Every relationship becomes a gauge of your inner growth. At the deepest level, it points to the fundamental unity that underlies apparent separation. When you truly understand that what you see in another is an aspect of yourself, compassion becomes unavoidable. The Persian poet Rumi wrote, "Be like melting snow, wash yourself of yourself." He was pointing to this same recognition. In deep relationship, in true intimacy, the boundaries between self and other begin to dissolve. The ancient practice of satsang, gathering in truth, was built on this understanding. When people come together with the intention of seeing clearly, of supporting each other's awakening, the mirror becomes a tool of collective liberation. Notice your patterns of attraction and aversion. Who are you drawn to? What qualities in others magnetize you? These point to aspects of yourself that want to emerge, qualities that are underdeveloped in your own character. Who repels you? What behaviors trigger your strongest judgments? These often point to aspects of yourself that you've rejected, qualities you've pushed into the shadow but haven't truly integrated or healed. The ancient alchemists called this process solve et coagula, dissolve and reconstitute. Use the mirror of relationship to dissolve false identifications and reconstitute a more complete understanding of who you are. Perhaps nowhere is this teaching more relevant than in intimate relationships. Your closest partnerships, romantic, friendship, family, provide the most accurate and challenging mirrors. The person you live with sees you when your defenses are down. They know your patterns, your triggers, your unconscious habits. They reflect back not just who you think you are, but who you actually are in unguarded moments. This is why intimate relationship can be simultaneously the greatest source of growth and the greatest source of conflict in human life. The traditional marriage vows understood this mirror principle. For better or worse, in sickness and in health, for richer or poorer. They weren't just promising to stay together through external circumstances. They were committing to use the relationship as a mirror for complete self-knowledge. When your partner reflects back aspects of yourself you'd rather not see, the vow asks you to stay present, to use the discomfort as information rather than running away or attacking the mirror. If you have children, you've experienced one of the most powerful mirrors available. Children reflect back your emotional state, your stress levels, your unresolved patterns with uncanny accuracy. They show you not what you say or what you intend, but what you actually embody. They respond to your energy more than your words, to your being more than your doing. Even larger social dynamics follow this principle. The state of your community, your country, your world reflects collective consciousness. The leaders we elect, the problems we face, the challenges we encounter are all mirrors of our shared inner condition. This doesn't mean we're responsible for everything that happens, but it suggests that inner transformation and outer transformation are intimately connected. So how do you work skillfully with this teaching? How do you use relationship as a tool for awakening without becoming self-obsessed or losing appropriate boundaries? First, develop the capacity for honest self-reflection. When you notice a strong emotional reaction to another person, pause and ask, what is this showing me about myself? Second, take responsibility for your own inner state while maintaining appropriate boundaries around others' behavior. You can't control how others act, but you can work with your own reactions. Third, practice seeing the divine in everyone you meet. Even difficult people are playing their role in the cosmic drama perfectly. They're providing exactly the mirror you need for your growth. As you deepen in this understanding, you'll notice that judgment naturally transforms into compassion. When you recognize that the person who hurts you is reflecting your own capacity for hurting, when you see that the person who loves you is showing you your own loving nature, the separation between self and other becomes less solid. This doesn't make you passive or naive. You can still set boundaries, make discerning choices, and protect yourself when necessary. But you do so from wisdom rather than reactivity. Modern neuroscience has discovered mirror neurons, brain cells that fire both when we perform an action and when we observe others performing the same action. We're literally wired to reflect each other, to share emotional states, to participate in each other's experience. The ancients intuited what science is now proving. Separation is largely an illusion. We are interconnected at the deepest levels of our being. There's profound healing that occurs when we feel truly seen by another person. Not judged, not analyzed, not fixed, but simply witnessed with compassion and acceptance. This is the gift we can offer others when we understand the mirror teaching. Instead of reacting to their behavior, we can see the pain or fear or longing that drives it. Instead of judging their patterns, we can recognize them as human struggles we share. As you work with this teaching over time, you'll notice that your relationships become laboratories for awakening. Every interaction becomes an opportunity to practice presence, compassion, and clear seeing. You'll start to attract different kinds of relationships, people who are also committed to growth, who can receive your authentic expression, who support your evolution rather than enabling your patterns. Notice how this fifth secret weaves together all the previous teachings. The sacred pause allows you to respond rather than react when triggered by another. The witnessing awareness observes your reactions without being consumed by them. The wisdom of emptiness recognizes that both self and other are temporary appearances in the same field of consciousness. The rhythm of natural flow helps you know when to engage and when to step back in relationship. Together, these 5 secrets create a complete approach to inner peace that honors both solitude and connection, both individual development and relational wisdom. The great spiritual communities throughout history understood this principle. Whether in Buddhist sanghas, Christian monasteries, Sufi orders, or indigenous tribes, they recognized that awakening happens in relationship, through the friction and the love, the challenges and the support that community provides. They created containers where people could practice seeing each other clearly, where the mirror could function without causing harm, where growth could happen through connection rather than isolation. In our contemporary world, we can apply this ancient wisdom by choosing our relationships consciously. Who are the people that support your highest development? Who challenges you to grow? Who reflects back your potential rather than just your problems? Create or join communities of conscious relationship, book clubs, spiritual groups, support circles, mastermind groups, where people are committed to using their interactions for mutual awakening. The deepest teaching of the mirror is this: there is ultimately only one being appearing as many forms. The person who angers you, the person who loves you, the person who challenges you, the person who supports you, they are all faces of the same consciousness that you are. When you truly understand this, relationship becomes worship. Every interaction becomes an opportunity to serve the divine appearing as your partner, your friend, your colleague, your stranger on the street. Here's the beautiful paradox. The more you recognize yourself in others, the more authentic you become. The more you see through the illusion of separation, the more genuinely individual you become. The more you understand that everyone is your teacher, the more you have to offer as a teacher yourself. Begin today. Choose one relationship that challenges you. Instead of focusing on what the other person needs to change, ask, what is this relationship teaching me about myself? How is this person serving my awakening? This doesn't mean you have to like everyone or accept harmful behavior. It means you use every relationship as an opportunity to know yourself more deeply and to love more widely. The masters who understood this secret made a remarkable promise, that when you learn to see yourself clearly in the mirror of relationship, you discover that love is not something you do, it's something you are. Every being you encounter becomes an opportunity to remember and embody this love. Every relationship becomes a pathway home to your own true nature. How do you find flow in a world that demands constant doing? Start by noticing your natural rhythms. When do you feel most creative? When does your energy naturally dip? When do insights tend to arise? Instead of forcing yourself into arbitrary schedules, begin to honor these natural cycles. I knew a writer who struggled for years with creativity. She would sit at her desk every morning at 8 a.m., trying to force inspiration to come. The words felt labored, artificial. She was convinced she was simply not talented enough. Then she began to notice something. Ideas seemed to come most freely in the late afternoon, often while taking walks. Instead of fighting this pattern, she rearranged her schedule. She used her morning energy for editing and correspondence, and saved her writing time for when creativity naturally flowed. The transformation was remarkable. Her writing became more fluid, more authentic. What had once felt like struggle became a dance with inspiration. Even difficult emotions have their own natural flow. Grief has its seasons. Anger has its purpose. Fear has its wisdom. When we try to force these emotions to be different, to be positive when we're sad, to be calm when we're angry, we create resistance and suffering. The ancient way is different. It's about learning to move with the emotion's natural flow, allowing it to teach us what it came to teach, to complete its cycle in its own time. Spend time in nature and you'll see this principle everywhere. Trees don't struggle to grow. They simply reach toward light and extend roots toward water. Rivers don't fight their course. They find the path that serves the whole landscape. Seasons don't rush their changes. Spring emerges when it's ready. Summer builds to its fullness. Autumn releases what's no longer needed. Winter rests in deep stillness. You are part of this same natural world. The same intelligence that guides the planets in their orbits and the birds in their migrations is alive in you. Here's what the ancients discovered. When you align with natural flow, tremendous power becomes available. Not the power of force, but the power of nature itself. Watch a master martial artist. Their movements appear effortless, yet they can redirect the strongest attack. They've learned to work with energy rather than against it, to use the opponent's force rather than opposing it with their own. This same principle applies to all of life. The greatest achievements often come not through struggle, but through skillful alignment with larger forces. Contemporary research on flow states has validated what the ancients knew. When we're in flow, the brain shows a specific pattern called transient hypofrontality. The inner critic quiets down, self-consciousness disappears, and we enter a state of effortless concentration. During these states, performance soars, creativity explodes, and time seems to dissolve. Athletes call it being in the zone. Artists call it channeling the muse. The ancients simply called it the natural state of aligned action. But what about when life presents obstacles? When the natural flow seems blocked or unclear? The river again provides wisdom. When water encounters a rock, it doesn't attack the stone or give up flowing. It simply finds another path. Sometimes it pools for a while, gathering strength. Sometimes it divides and flows around. Sometimes it waits and gradually, patiently wears the obstacle away. Every obstacle contains information about the next right step. The key is to meet resistance with curiosity rather than force. When you begin to live this way, something fundamental shifts. Life becomes less of a struggle and more of a dance. You start to feel carried by something larger than personal effort. Decisions become clearer. Actions become more effective. Peace becomes your natural state. The sages who mastered this art made a beautiful promise that when you learn to move with the natural flow of life, you discover that the universe is always conspiring in your favor, not necessarily giving you what you want, but always providing what you need for your deepest growth and greatest service. As we prepare to explore our fifth ancient secret, feel into this rhythm of natural flow. Notice where you've been forcing and where you might allow. Notice where you've been swimming against the current and where you might find the natural course. The river of your life is always flowing toward the sea. Your job is not to control the current, but to learn to navigate with wisdom, grace, and trust. The fifth secret, the mirror of relationship. In the ancient temples of Greece, seekers would journey from distant lands to consult the oracle at Delphi. But before they could enter the sacred chamber, they had to pass through a hall lined with mirrors made of polished bronze. These weren't ordinary mirrors. They were designed to show not just your physical reflection, but something deeper, the state of your soul, the quality of your inner being. The temple priests understood a profound truth. You cannot know yourself in isolation. You need a mirror, and the most accurate mirror of all is relationship. This is our fifth ancient secret, the mirror of relationship. The ancient sages across all traditions discovered something remarkable. They found that every person you encounter, every interaction you have, every relationship in your life is reflecting back to you the contents of your own consciousness. Not in a simple, literal way, but in the deeper patterns of how you meet life, how you respond to challenge, how you love and fear and hope and defend. The Hindu tradition expressed this as, "The world is as you are." The Hermetic axiom stated, "As above, so below. As within, so without." Modern psychology calls it projection, but the ancients understood it as something far more profound, the fundamental interconnectedness of all existence. This teaching can be difficult to accept. It suggests that the person who irritates you most is showing you something about yourself, that the behavior you judge in others lives somewhere within your own psyche, that your outer world is a reflection of your inner landscape. Your immediate reaction might be to reject this idea. Surely some people are just difficult. Surely some situations are objectively problematic. Surely I'm not responsible for everything I encounter. The ancient masters would smile at this resistance. They knew it well. It's the ego's first line of defense against the mirror's revelations. Here's how the mirror works. When someone acts in a way that triggers a strong emotional response in you, anger, judgment, fear, attraction, something in them is resonating with something in you. If you encounter greed and feel disgusted, there's a part of you that knows greed intimately. If you meet someone's arrogance and feel offended, arrogance exists somewhere in your own system. If you're drawn to someone's confidence, you're recognizing a quality that wants to emerge in yourself. This isn't about blame or shame. It's about using relationship as a tool for self-discovery. The Greek philosophers developed a practice around this understanding. They would spend time at the end of each day reviewing their interactions, asking not, "How did others behave?" but, "What did my reactions reveal about me?" They saw every encounter as an opportunity for gnosis, direct knowledge of their own nature. Every relationship became a classroom. Every difficult person became a teacher. But the ancients understood something even deeper than psychological projection. They recognized that at the deepest level, separation itself is an illusion. What you see in another is not just a reflection of your psyche. It's literally an aspect of your own being appearing in a different form. The Vedantic tradition expresses this as tat tvam asi, thou art that. What you perceive as other is actually another face of the same consciousness that you are. This isn't mystical poetry. It's the most practical teaching possible for creating harmony in relationship. So how do you apply this ancient wisdom to modern life? How do you use relationship as a tool for awakening without becoming self-obsessed or losing appropriate boundaries? First, develop the capacity for honest self-reflection. When you notice a strong emotional reaction to another person, pause and ask, what is this showing me about myself? Second, take responsibility for your own inner state while maintaining appropriate boundaries around others' behavior. You can't control how others act, but you can work with your own reactions. Third, practice seeing the divine in everyone you meet. Even difficult people are playing their role in the cosmic drama perfectly. They're providing exactly the mirror you need for your growth. As you deepen in this understanding, you'll notice that judgment naturally transforms into compassion. When you recognize that the person who hurts you is reflecting your own capacity for hurting, when you see that the person who loves you is showing you your own loving nature, the separation between self and other becomes less solid. This doesn't make you passive or naive. You can still set boundaries, make discerning choices, and protect yourself when necessary. But you do so from wisdom rather than reactivity. Modern neuroscience has discovered mirror neurons, brain cells that fire both when we perform an action and when we observe others performing the same action. We're literally wired to reflect each other, to share emotional states, to participate in each other's experience. The ancients intuited what science is now proving. Separation is largely an illusion. We are interconnected at the deepest levels of our being. The sixth secret, the alchemy of acceptance. In the desert monasteries of ancient Egypt, there lived hermits who had discovered something remarkable about the nature of suffering. They found that the very experiences they most wanted to avoid, loneliness, discomfort, fear, doubt, when met with complete acceptance, transformed into the qualities they most sought: peace, strength, faith, and wisdom. They called this process the alchemy of acceptance, the mysterious transformation that occurs when we stop fighting what is and learn to embrace the fullness of human experience. This is our sixth ancient secret. Most human suffering comes not from the experiences themselves, but from our resistance to those experiences. Pain is inevitable, it's part of being human. But suffering is optional. It's what we add through our rejection, our stories, our demands that reality be different than it is. The ancient Stoics understood this deeply. Epictetus taught, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." But he wasn't talking about positive thinking or spiritual bypassing. He was pointing to something much more profound: the alchemical power of total acceptance. True acceptance isn't resignation or passivity. It's not pretending to like what you don't like or approving of what you disapprove of. It's not giving up your capacity to create change or set boundaries. Acceptance is a profound yes to what is actually present right now, regardless of whether you want it to be present. It's the recognition that reality is already perfectly real, whether you approve of it or not. The Buddha discovered this principle through his own experimentation with extreme practices. For years, he tried to achieve enlightenment through asceticism, deprivation, and harsh discipline. He nearly died from his efforts. His breakthrough came when he stopped fighting his humanity and began to embrace it completely. He ate when hungry, slept when tired, felt whatever emotions arose. In this radical acceptance of his full experience, he found the peace that had eluded him through years of struggle. Notice your own patterns of resistance. What experiences do you habitually reject? Physical discomfort? Emotional pain? Uncertainty? Boredom? Criticism? Loneliness? These rejections create a constant low-level war between you and reality. Part of your energy is always devoted to maintaining defenses against unwanted experiences, leaving less available for creativity, love, and growth. But something mysterious happens when you begin to welcome what you've been rejecting. The very qualities of experience that seemed unbearable begin to reveal hidden gifts. Loneliness, when fully embraced, becomes solitude, a rich space for self-discovery and creative expression. Fear, when met without resistance, becomes aliveness and heightened awareness. Sadness, when allowed its full expression, becomes compassion and emotional depth. I remember a period when I was experiencing intense anxiety about the future. Every day brought new worries about finances, relationships, health, purpose. I tried everything to make the anxiety go away: meditation, exercise, therapy, distraction. Then I encountered this teaching on acceptance. Instead of trying to eliminate the anxiety, I began to welcome it. Hello, anxiety. What do you want me to know? What are you protecting me from? How can I take care of what concerns you? The shift was remarkable. The anxiety didn't disappear, but it transformed. It became a kind of caring attention, a protective awareness that helped me make wiser decisions and take better care of myself. Acceptance operates at multiple levels simultaneously. On the surface, it's about welcoming immediate experience, the emotion you're feeling, the sensation in your body, the thought that's arising. At a deeper level, it's about embracing your whole life story, your mistakes and successes, your traumas and joys, your strengths and limitations. It's recognizing that every experience has contributed to who you are now. At the deepest level, it's about saying yes to existence itself, to the mystery of being alive, to the unknown nature of reality, to your place in the vast cosmic unfolding. Carl Jung, the great psychologist, understood this principle when he wrote about shadow work, the process of integrating the parts of ourselves we've rejected or denied. The ancient alchemists had a similar understanding. They knew that the prima materia, the raw material for transformation, was often found in what appeared most base, most unwanted, most rejected. Your shadows, the qualities you dislike about yourself, the emotions you try to avoid, the aspects of your personality you've judged as wrong, contain tremendous creative energy when embraced with acceptance. Let's take anger as an example. Many spiritual teachings suggest we should transcend anger, rise above it, transform it into love. But the alchemy of acceptance suggests a different approach. What if you welcomed anger completely? What if you became curious about its message, its energy, its protective function? What if you allowed it to move through you without judgment or suppression? Often, anger transforms naturally into passion, into clarity about boundaries, into energy for positive change. The transformation happens not through rejection of the anger, but through its complete acceptance. Here's the beautiful paradox at the heart of this teaching. The more completely you accept what is, the more naturally change occurs. When you stop using your energy to fight reality, that energy becomes available for creative response. It's like the difference between swimming against a strong current and learning to work with the water's flow. When you stop struggling against the current, you can use its power to reach the shore more effectively. This principle applies powerfully to physical experience. Chronic pain, illness, aging, physical limitations, when met with complete acceptance rather than resistance, often reveal unexpected gifts. The acceptance doesn't necessarily heal the condition, but it ends the additional suffering created by fighting the condition. And sometimes, in that space of non-resistance, the body's own healing intelligence can work more effectively. The alchemy of acceptance extends to relationships. When you stop trying to change other people and begin to accept them exactly as they are, something shifts in the relational dynamic. This doesn't mean accepting harmful behavior or abandoning appropriate boundaries. It means recognizing that your resistance to who someone is creates tension and conflict that prevents authentic connection. The great spiritual traditions all developed practices around this principle. Christian monastics spoke of abandonment to divine providence, a complete surrender to whatever circumstances God allowed. Buddhist practitioners cultivated patient endurance with all conditions. Sufi mystics embraced fana, the dissolution of personal will into divine will. These weren't practices of defeat, but of profound trust in the intelligence of existence itself. Contemporary brain research has shown that acceptance literally changes neural pathways. When we practice accepting difficult emotions rather than suppressing them, the brain develops greater emotional regulation and resilience. The fight or flight response, which creates so much suffering in modern life, naturally calms when we learn to welcome rather than resist challenging experiences. Learning acceptance is like developing a muscle. It starts small, maybe accepting a minor physical discomfort or a moment of boredom. Gradually, you build the capacity to welcome larger challenges, deeper emotions, more significant life changes. Each act of acceptance builds your trust in the process, your confidence that you can handle whatever arises, your faith in the transformative power of non-resistance. Notice how this sixth secret weaves with the others. The sacred pause creates space to choose acceptance over reaction. The witnessing awareness observes without automatically resisting. The wisdom of emptiness recognizes that all experiences arise and pass in the same spacious awareness. The natural flow honors the organic process of transformation. The mirror of relationship shows us what we're resisting in ourselves. The deepest level of this teaching is the acceptance of mystery itself. You don't know why you're here, where you came from, where you're going. You don't know the meaning of existence, the purpose of suffering, the nature of consciousness. Can you accept not knowing? Can you embrace the fundamental uncertainty of being human? Can you find peace in the mystery rather than anxiety? The masters who embodied this secret made a profound promise. That complete acceptance of what is leads to a kind of inner freedom that no external circumstances can touch. Not because difficult things stop happening, but because you discover an unshakable peace that can welcome anything. This is not the peace of getting what you want, but the peace of wanting what is. Not the happiness of favorable conditions, but the joy of unconditional presence. The seventh secret, the return to wonder. In the final teaching, we come full circle to the beginning, to the quality of mind that you possessed before you learned that wonder was impractical, that questions needed immediate answers, that the mystery of existence was something to be solved rather than celebrated. This is our seventh and final ancient secret, the return to wonder. Watch a small child encounter a butterfly for the first time. There is no analysis, no categorization, no immediate attempt to understand or control. There is pure amazement, complete openness. The mind meets the moment with fresh eyes, as if seeing existence for the very first time. This is the quality the ancient sages cultivated throughout their entire lives. The Greeks called it thaumasion, the capacity for wonder that Aristotle said was the beginning of all philosophy. The Zen masters spoke of Shoshin, beginner's mind. The Christian mystics pursued what they called holy ignorance, a learned unknowing that opened the heart to direct encounter with the divine. Somewhere along the way, most of us lose this capacity. We learn facts instead of experiencing mystery. We develop opinions instead of staying curious. We become experts on life instead of remaining students of existence. The mind that once approached each moment with fresh amazement becomes filled with preconceptions, judgments, assumptions about how things should be. We stop seeing what's actually here and start seeing our ideas about what's here. The great mystic traditions understood that true wisdom begins with the recognition of how little we actually know. Socrates, considered one of the wisest men who ever lived, said his wisdom consisted in knowing that he knew nothing. This wasn't false humility or intellectual limitation. It was the recognition that the deepest truths cannot be grasped by the thinking mind, but can only be experienced through direct encounter with reality. Wonder is not just an occasional feeling of amazement. It's a complete orientation toward existence. It's the recognition that every moment contains infinite mystery, that every breath is a miracle, that every encounter holds the potential for revelation. When you approach life with genuine wonder, the ordinary becomes extraordinary. A conversation with a friend becomes a meeting of two mysteries. A walk in the park becomes an exploration of an alien world. Even mundane tasks like washing dishes become opportunities for amazement at the simple fact that you exist at all. Instead of seeking answers that close down inquiry, wonder asks questions that open up possibility. Not "what is this?" but "what else might this be?" Not "how can I control this?" but "what is this trying to teach me?" Not "why is this happening to me?" but "what adventure is unfolding through this experience?" These questions don't seek information. They seek transformation. They don't try to capture reality in concepts, but allow reality to capture you in its inexhaustible richness. The greatest scientists have always been driven not by the desire to know, but by the capacity to wonder. Einstein spoke of the cosmic religious feeling that drove his discoveries. Darwin described his sense of sublimity in observing the natural world. Marie Curie wrote about the fairy-like quality of her radioactive materials. They remain children in their approach to the mystery of existence, even as they develop sophisticated methods for exploring that mystery. Wonder naturally brings you into the present moment. When you're truly amazed by something, you're not thinking about the past or planning for the future. You're completely here, completely available to what's arising now. This is why wonder is such a powerful spiritual practice. It doesn't require special techniques or beliefs. It simply asks you to approach this moment, whatever this moment contains, with fresh eyes and an open heart. Take your breath, for example. You've been breathing every moment of your entire life. It's the most familiar experience you have. Yet when approached with genuine wonder, the breath reveals itself as an extraordinary mystery. Where does the impulse to breathe come from? How does your body know to extract oxygen and release carbon dioxide? What intelligence coordinates the millions of cellular processes involved in each breath? How is it that this invisible air becomes the very life force that sustains you? The more you wonder about the breath, the more miraculous it becomes. And this is true of every aspect of experience when met with genuine curiosity. When you approach other people with wonder rather than assumption, relationships are transformed. Instead of thinking you know who someone is based on past interactions, you meet them fresh in each moment. Who are you today? Becomes more interesting than, I know who you are. What's alive in you right now? Becomes more important than, you always act this way. Wonder sees the mystery of consciousness appearing as your partner, your friend, your child, your colleague. It recognizes that every person is an entire universe of experience that you can never fully comprehend. Perhaps most powerfully, wonder can transform your relationship with difficult experiences. Instead of immediately judging pain as bad and pleasure as good, wonder asks, what is this experience? What might it have to teach me? What am I learning about the nature of being human? This doesn't minimize real suffering or suggest that all experiences are equally pleasant. But it opens the possibility that even difficult experiences contain information, gifts, opportunities for growth that can only be discovered through genuine inquiry. The ancient Hermetic teaching, as above, so below, pointed to the correspondence between the macrocosm and the microcosm. The same forces that move galaxies move within your own being. The same intelligence that creates stars creates your thoughts. The same mystery that birthed the universe is expressing itself as your life right now. When you approach yourself with wonder, you're exploring not just a personal psychology, but the very nature of consciousness itself. Your dreams, your desires, your fears, your loves. These are the cosmos knowing itself through your particular perspective. Try this. Choose something completely familiar, your morning cup of coffee, your drive to work, your evening routine, and approach it as if you're encountering it for the first time. What would an alien observer notice about this human ritual? What would surprise them? What would seem miraculous about these ordinary actions when viewed from a completely fresh perspective? All great art, literature, music, and innovation emerge from wonder. The artist who paints the same tree for the 100th time and discovers something new. The writer who explores the same human emotions and finds fresh language. The inventor who looks at an old problem with new eyes. Wonder is the source of all creativity because it keeps the mind fluid, open, available to new possibilities rather than trapped in familiar patterns. Notice how this seventh secret brings together all the others. Wonder naturally creates sacred pauses as you stop to really see what's here. It cultivates witnessing awareness as you observe with curiosity rather than judgment. It recognizes the spacious emptiness in which all experience arises. It flows naturally with life's rhythms rather than imposing rigid expectations. It sees others as mirrors reflecting infinite mystery. It accepts what is with genuine curiosity about its nature and purpose. Wonder is both the first and final teaching, the natural state you started with and the wisdom you return to after all the learning and searching and growing. The ancient masters remained students their entire lives, not because they hadn't learned enough, but because they recognized that reality is inexhaustible. There's always more to discover, always deeper to go, always fresh perspectives to explore. This is the ultimate humility, not the smallness that comes from feeling inadequate, but the vastness that comes from recognizing how much mystery surrounds and permeates every moment of existence. You're not trying to force amazement or pretend to be impressed by things that don't genuinely move you. You're simply removing the barriers, the assumptions, judgments, and preconceptions that prevent natural wonder from arising. The sages who mastered this final secret made perhaps the most beautiful promise of all. That life lived in wonder is life fully alive. Not because external circumstances are always pleasant, but because you're awake to the extraordinary nature of ordinary existence. You remember what the child in you always knew, that you're living inside an incredible mystery, that every moment is unprecedented, that existence itself is the most amazing thing that could possibly happen. And it's happening right now. The silence that contains all sounds. We've journeyed together through 7 ancient secrets, 7 timeless keys to the quiet mind, the sacred pause, watching without judging, the wisdom of emptiness, the rhythm of natural flow, the mirror of relationship, the alchemy of acceptance, the return to wonder. But here's the deepest secret of all. These aren't really separate teachings. They're 7 faces of one truth, 7 ways of pointing to the same profound recognition. You are not separate from the peace you seek. You are not lacking the wisdom you need. You are not broken and in need of fixing. You are the awareness in which all experience arises. You are the silence that contains all sounds. You are the space in which all movement occurs. The quiet mind is not something you achieve. It's something you recognize. Not something you create, but something you uncover by removing everything that obscures it. Right now, as these words fade into silence, that quiet mind is here, available, present, waiting not for you to become someone different, but for you to remember who you've always been. The ancient masters discovered this truth thousands of years ago, and it's just as true today, just as available today, just as transformative today. In your next breath, in your next pause, in your next moment of wonder, the same peace that guided the sages through millennia is ready to guide you home to yourself. If these ancient secrets have touched something in you, if they've awakened a recognition of the peace that's your birthright, then carry this silence with you. Let it infuse your daily life, your relationships, your work, your rest. Subscribe to The Quiet Mind if you want to continue this journey together. Return to this space whenever you need reminding of what you already know. Share these teachings with others who might benefit from remembering their true nature. But most importantly, live them, not as concepts to understand, but as invitations to recognize the profound peace that is always already here, always already now, always already you. The quiet mind is not a destination. It's your constant companion, your deepest nature, your most intimate friend. Welcome home.